Welcome back. Great to have you aboard for the 12th day running, and you may well know this already. Environmental activists Just Stop Oil have been causing major disruption in central London. By sitting in streets around the capital, they've delayed fire engines and ambulances responding to emergencies. Tempers, as you can see there, have reached boiling point and beyond, as frustrated drivers have been taking matters into their own hands, dragging the protesters away. And another man, trying to rush a child to hospital, pleaded for them to end their protest.
I will start moving these people myself. I ain't foul. I ain't foul. I ain't foul. Right. Who wants to help me? I don't give a flying about your television.
I mean, earlier this week, we heard about police officers offering protesters coffee and help. Can we help you in any way? Can we make you feel better in any way? Lots of people thought that that was absolutely extraordinary. They were horrified. But what about the public actually taking the law into their own hands, or more literally, a protester into their own hands, getting out of the car or vehicle, picking them up and hauling them across the road, whether they want to go or not? And we know they don't. Do you think the public should intervene now? Or maybe you think it's right for climate protesters to make their point? Joining me in the studio is James Skeet. He's from Just Stop Oil. They have vowed to occupy Westminster until the government makes a statement that it will immediately halt all future licensing and consent for the exploration, development and production of fossil fuels in the UK. Thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having me, Vanessa.
Good to have you here. And I know that Just Stop Oil doesn't have kind of a real hierarchy of bosses and leaders, so everybody's kind of equal within the, I hesitate even to say organisation, I say within the movement, within the movement.
Yes, that's correct.
All right, so you can see what's going on there. I don't need to reiterate the whole thing. Obviously, people are getting thoroughly fed up as they're trying to get to work or to hospital. They're trying to get to where they need to go. And your members or your affiliates or whatever you want to call them, your alumni, are clogging up the works on purpose and making it impossible for them to go about their daily business. And in fact, they're so fed up with it that they're beginning to just get out of cars and off bicycles and start shunting them across the road physically because they can't stand any more of it. So what's your response to that?
Well, I mean, just to get everyone up to speed, what we're asking for is no new licensing and consents for any fossil fuel exploration in the UK. And obviously, I completely empathise and understand people's frustration with us being in the street. You know, I'd be annoyed too if I was trying to get somewhere. But what I'd ask people to consider is the real disruption that we're facing. You know, in recent weeks, we hit 40 degrees C in this country. As a result of that, 60 UK families lost their houses in wildfires. We've got 33 million people displaced in Pakistan right now. We've lost a third of our wheat yields. We're projected to lose 50% of our potato crop. The disruption that's coming down the line is so massive that, unfortunately, normal people have been forced to push this issue, and it's sad that it reaches this point.
You see, there may be many people broadly sympathetic to everything you've just said. I can't see how anyone listening could think, well, I don't care if people have lost their houses in the fire. I don't care if it's getting hotter and hotter. I don't care if the planet is heating up and things are worrying. I can't imagine people not caring less. But I can imagine people thinking, in fact, I could imagine myself thinking, I'm in my car, I'm driving to visit my aged aunt because I'm taking her over some dinner because she can't make it for herself. You're stopping me, you're in my path. What can I do about fuels and extraction of fuels or whatever it is that you're objecting to, the excavation of oil or whatever it is? You know, I'm a broadcaster, I can't do anything. So what is the point of me having to sit in my car for 2 hours or whatever it is, waiting for your chaps to unglue themselves from the road, when I personally, and all the other people behind me in the line that you've created, can't do anything either?
Yes, I agree. It's a horrible tactic, and I mean, for the record, for what it's worth, I do agree with you that it's ridiculous, really, that nurses, doctors, teachers, cleaners, barmen, are having to go out into the streets and demand something that the government should just be doing anyway. You know, the government at the current time are funneling £236 million a week of taxpayers' money, subsidising the most profitable industry on earth. Why are they not putting that money into eliciting a fair transition for workers in these industries and for all of us, because we need that.
But sure, absolutely, you may be absolutely right about all of that. But then why not stop? I'm not saying you should do this. I'm not saying it's legal, but if you could do it by legal means, why not stop Liz Truss's car?
I would love to.
Why not? Why not stop? The Ministry for Energy's car? What's the point of stopping a waitress's car, a geography teacher's car, you know, a fire engine, an ambulance? What is the point of that? Why do you have to do that to make the government act? And so far, do you think you've made any difference to government policy?
I mean, unfortunately, I wish there was an easier tactic, but disruption, history has shown that disruption is one of the most effective means of bringing about the kind of societal shift that we need to see in the sort of time frame that we have left. Are we having an impact on government policy? Well, I mean, I think at the moment, I think that what we need to consider is what is the moral, correct thing to do at this time in history. You've got 2 children. Are you not in any way concerned about the trajectory that we're on right now? You know, if as I said,
it's not that I'm not concerned. It's just, is this an effective technique? If what you do is impede people's progress, get people very annoyed, you know, get people in a position where they can't make a living that day, and we've just been through a pandemic, we're in the middle of a cost of living crisis, people are down to the wire when it comes to paying rent, paying for a pair of shoes for the kids. I mean, people are worried sick about money and making a living. If you stop somebody on a 0 hours contract getting to do the job that they need to do to pay the rent, how does that help with whatever you want to do to save the planet?
I agree. I mean, it's heartbreaking. I don't want to ruin anyone's day,
right.
You know, and it's horrible. And I wish that holding a placard by the side of the road was as effective. But the reality is that wouldn't have got me on your programme. And now we're having a discussion about the most critical issue facing humanity. I wish there was an easier way. I honestly do. But history's shown time and time again that disruptive direct action is the most effective means available to us.
So we're talking about, you know, the public getting up and taking action themselves. They don't feel that the police are doing it, so they're doing it. They're just getting you out of the way, pulling your protesters out of the road, which is at risk to the protesters. Of course, you could hurt them as you're doing it. You could end up bumping them or, you know, any other thing, who knows. But let's talk to someone who isn't just theorising about this, somebody who actually did this, because I'm joined by Mum Sherilyn Speed. Now, Sherilyn, you may remember her because she was banned from driving after using her car to try and move protesters. Hi, Sherilyn. Thanks for joining us.
Hi.
I mean, we should say you haven't got off scot-free, have you, here? You've actually been apprehended, arrested. What's gone on so far with you since doing it?
I'm actually still on probation. I have to see a probation officer all the time. You know, I'm on a driving ban. I can't drive again until March next year. It affected me. It affected my life. It affected my child's life. And what I've been seeing on social media recently, the last couple of days, honestly, it's really upset me. That's why I've come on here. I've come on here to support the public, just like the way they supported me, you know. And I just want to ask, like, it's been a year, actually, today, since this happened to me.
Yeah.
What have you guys achieved doing this to the general public over the last year? I don't see the government standing up saying, do you know what? We're going to make changes. I don't see that happening. And if it was me in your position, I'd be rethinking my methods and saying, do you know what? People are so frustrated. People are so upset. Like you're disrupting people's lives. This is not a joke. And I just think you need to rethink your methods. I've said this so many times. Like it makes me so angry because there's so many people that need to get to hospital. Their children need to go to school. People need to go to work. But I'm self-employed. As I said, if I don't go to work, I don't get paid. There's millions of other people that they need their livelihoods. Like, you're taking away people's livelihoods. It's not fair what you're doing.
Hi, Sherilyn. Yeah, I mean, that occurred during the Insulate Britain protest, didn't it? And and I'd say, so we're a year out from that, and what we're starting to see now is a realisation in the general public that actually, if Insulate Britain had been listened to and we'd started insulating people's homes, we would have had a massive impact on the reduction of people's bills now in the cost of living crisis. Keir Starmer has been talking about this, as well as the leader of the Lib Dems. So it's entered the mainstream political discourse in a way it otherwise wouldn't have done. Now, obviously, I'm very sorry that you got interrupted there, but the fact is that people are talking about insulation now, so you can't deny the fact that it doesn't work. And what I'm saying is, like,
talking about it not in a positive way, are they? They're talking about it in a very negative way. I don't see loads of groups of people standing up saying, do you know what? I really want to follow their calls and I want to support them. I want to support these people. I don't see that.
I've got to say, Sherilyn, let me just interrupt him. I love just to say, you know, with the cost of energy, and you and I know and everybody knows that it's more and more and more expensive, people are scared to turn the heating on. This is where the insulation comes in. So when you say people are talking about it, Sherilyn, and you say, but they're not in favour of it, of course they're in favour of it. They wish that their homes were insulated so that their energy bills would be... Now, hang on a minute. So that their energy bills would be less, you know, when people are worried sick, including you, about how to pay the bill. So what he's saying is, and I think it's pretty fair to say, that that on the agenda is something that everyone's talking about. How the hell do you keep warm? You know.
Yes, and everyone is obviously really concerned about that. But my point is, it's not about the cause; it's the methods that that you guys are using to get to that.
I appreciate that.
Of course, you've got a point, haven't you?
Of course, you've got a point. But ultimately, I'm not on X Factor here. This is not a popularity contest. You know, this is an attempt to change the course of humanity and avert the biggest crisis that we've ever faced. And so I'm calling on anyone who understands this, that they need to be joining us in civil resistance, and come and join us outside Downing Street, 11 o'clock every day.
Sherilyn, let me ask you this. Do you think you did the right thing? I mean, you know, you felt the full force of the law, you can't drive, you know, you're on probation. I mean, it hasn't been a picnic since you did it. Looking back, do you wish you hadn't? And looking back, do you think you have been fairly punished? Or do you think, actually, it shouldn't have been you who was punished, it really should have been the protesters? When you think back, and you must have thought of it a million times since, what do you think?
Yeah. Look, as I said, you know, I know that I took it too far. And, of course, I regret going to the extent that I did. However, that's how passionately I felt about it on that day, you know. And I'm still looking at other people now struggling in this. And I'm thinking, my God, you know, I can see the frustration in everyone's face. Like, I just don't think that it's a fair way to do it. And, of course, yeah, it's been tough for me, but I don't dwell on the past. I'll move on, you know, like, it's fine. But, yeah, I just don't like what I'm seeing at the moment. It's, you know, it brings it back for me. And I know it's not a nice experience to be in when someone's telling you you can't go nowhere.
All right, Sherilyn and James, we both have a good listen to this caller, because we've got Josephine on the line. Josephine's in West Sussex. Hi, Josephine. Thanks a lot for ringing. Good afternoon.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello, Vanessa.
What would you like to say, Josephine?
I would like, please, to ask your environmental protester,
James, yeah.
how would he like to be in all that traffic trying to get a loved one of his to a hospital appointment, chemotherapy, or anything that would be really dreadful to miss an appointment for? How would he like it if it was his child or his wife or his mother trying to get to an important hospital appointment?
Okay, good question. Well, how would you feel?
I'd be horribly upset. You know, it's completely understandable that people are angry with us. I'm angry that it's reached this point. It's an incredibly sad situation that doctors, vicars, students feel so incensed that they're going out and causing this. But look at them. These are normal people. Are they all insane? Are they all crazy to be going and sitting out on the road? Or have they read the science? And can they see that the trajectory that we're on is not a good one? And that we need to change, we need to halt any new licensing consents for any fossil fuel projects.
Josephine?
About it in the wrong way, and you haven't answered the question. How would you feel?
Well, he has. No, he said he'd feel furious. He'd be very upset. He'd be very annoyed. He'd be furious. He did say that.
Would you stop your own family member?
What did you say, my love?
Would you stop your own family
Oh,
member?
if it was your own family trying to drive through, would you stop them? Good question, Sherilyn.
Good question.
Well,
I think.
what I'm asking.
Would you?
I think ultimately, it's
Yes or no, please, would be like perfect.
Well, let's say it was your dad driving your mum to chemotherapy, and you're the person sitting in the road. And your dad leans out the window and says, James, mate, come on, I've got your mum in the car, and you know that she's got, you know, one session.
I think you know the answer that I'd give. Of course, I'd be wildly concerned about that situation.
But what would you do?
Fortunately, we're not looking at things from the individual point.
No, but it's a fair question.
It is a fair question.
If it was your dad and your mum, or your wife and your child, I don't know about your relationships or your family, would you let them through, or would you say, I'm sorry, this is more important than you? It's more important.
They want to know. They've got all this traffic jammed up. They don't know what the reasons are for people in the queue.
I know, but let James answer the question, because it's a damn good question.
It is a damn good question.
What would you do
you know,
if it was
obviously,
your own
my
mum and dad?
My primary concern is obviously to my local family, and as anyone, as any of us would say that. But the reason we're doing this is because we care about our family and we care about our local community, and at the moment, if we don't get a handle on this problem, we're on trajectory for societal collapse, right? If our wheat yields are down a third, if our potato crops are we're losing half of our potato crops by the end of the year, we're talking about food riots. We're talking about societal collapse. It's literally the annihilation of everything that we care about.
Let me ask you this. Josephine's on the line. So effectively, it seems to me that what James is saying, and he may argue with me if he disagrees with the way I'm paraphrasing it, is effectively he and his cohort know better than us. They know what's good for us. They know what we don't understand. They appreciate how urgent it is in a way that we don't appreciate it. Therefore, he has to step in on our behalf to effect change for all of us that we don't realise we ought to be effecting. Is that right?
I wouldn't. No, I certainly wouldn't
Okay,
phrase it
well,
like
what
that,
is it then?
Vanessa. I mean,
What is
I
it?
think that I think that the British people understand the situation. I mean, like 76% of the population view the climate crisis as deeply concerning. But the fact of the matter is, this disruption would stop tomorrow if the government just made a meaningful declaration to halt any new licensing consents for any oil and gas, right? And that's a no-brainer. It's what everyone knows needs to happen. It's what the United Nations are telling us needs to happen. The International Energy Agency needs to happen. We deep down, we all know that.
All right, let me bring in another caller. Thanks to Josephine, who was on the line. Sean's now on the line in Portsmouth. Hello, Sean. What would you like to ask?
Hi, guys, and hello to your panellists now. I've got a question for him. Why aren't you standing candidates for election rather than doing protests? Because I don't see your protests are making any difference.
Because fundamentally, we don't live in a democracy. 0.03% of the population appointed our new sociopath-in-chief. 29% of the population voted for the Johnson regime. We don't live in a democracy. And also, it would be, we're 2 years out from a general election. Chief Scientific Advisor to multiple UK governments, Sir David King, said we have 2 to 3 years to determine the future of humanity. We are out of time. Right? We tried the placards, we tried the petitions, we tried all of it. It doesn't work. And what does work is, unfortunately, annoying people. And I'm really sorry about that. I am. But
I want to know if Sean's
it's
convinced.
the last resort.
Sean, that's your answer. It's a pretty vivid and vibrant answer. But are you convinced by that the legitimate methods, the tried and trusted methods, don't work? This is agitation. It's got to work.
No, I fervently disagree. We do live in a democracy. It's a representative democracy. And if he wants to make his case politically, he should be standing for election, basically, rather than doing what he's doing.
Don't know if I'd get many votes at this point, but thank you.
Sean, thank you for the call. Sherilyn, what do you think? I mean, do you think Sean's right?
Yeah. Why not try it? If something's not working, try something new.
But it is
That's
working.
what I would do.
I'm sorry, Sherilyn. Like,
I
the
don't
civil
see
rights
evidence
movement was highly
working.
disruptive. The suffragettes are the reason why women have the vote. Women didn't get the vote by voting. They got them by smashing windows. You know? It works. I'm sorry. I wish there was another way, honestly.
Effectively, he's throwing himself in front of the king's horse, but it's not a king's horse. It's unfortunately occasionally an ambulance. It's a fire engine. It's a
Blue light policy. We always get out that we always let blue light vehicles through.
This. And they're not. This is what's like getting me.
Say again, Sherilyn.
So she wants the government. Sherilyn, thank you very much indeed. Good to have you on the programme.
Thanks,
James,
Sherilyn.
likewise. And fascinating to have you here.
So much.
If you want to continue to phone about this, please do. I know that you are probably riled by every word that's been uttered. Coming up, then, we've got a different question for you. And finally, it's a really hilarious question, given what we've just been doing, which is ranking up your blood pressure enormously. The question is this: are we too obsessed with stress? Do you think we are now just too fragile in the face of day-to-day issues?